or or English language in Theatre Grind next week. It's a comedy about bipolar, so I'm very excited to dig deep more into that tomorrow morning on the Breakfast Show. So tune in tomorrow morning. But we're still here this evening on Thursday, the 13th of April, and we've now got Carl from Synergy with us. Good evening.
Good evening, guys. How are you? Good evening, Pure West Radio listeners.
Hayley, this month is Stress Awareness Month. Give us an overview and an insight as to what that is.
We've talked about already. Awareness. We love a bit of awareness because I think we live in unawareness because we're so busy. So becoming aware of how you're feeling, whether you're stressed or not, whether it's good stress or not, is really important.
Good stressed. Carl, is that a term that resonates with you?
Absolutely. If you're not stressing yourself, then how are you progressing yourself? I've just made that up and it rhymes.
Yes.
But I mean, listen, yeah, we live on the edge of our comfort zone, and that's where progression is made. So, I mean, if you set yourself things which are just outside of your comfort zone, then it's that good stress feeling. That's where it's applicable. Obviously, there's a lot of bad stresses that happen with us, but you've got to put yourself in a position to progress and improve and keep yourself accountable. Whether it's a diary and keeping to time schedules, whether it's anything, eating like the right foods at the right times. There's good stress that you got to have in order to keep yourself accountable, for sure.
For sure. And Hayley, give us an overview. What is stress?
Well, do you know, many years ago, I was working in Women's Aid at the time, and we had a lady from the university who came in and was doing a little demonstration of some of the courses they were running. And she was talking about when your body is stressed, it produces cortisol, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Am I right? But what she had on the screen was a heart full of all the arteries were blocked from stress. And I was like, oh, because at the time I was really stressed. It really freaked me out because it has an emotional response, a mental response, and a physical response. And I think that's something that we don't really think about. We think about stress, good and bad, but what the impact long term is on our bodies as well. And Carl will speak more to that.
Well, yeah, the working the body is something that Carl definitely knows. GJ's still with us. He's been with us for the whole show. Carl, I don't know if you can see the comments as they come up. He said that stress is a choice. What are your thoughts on that, Carl?
Yeah, listen, I understand where Greg's coming from. But you've got to be able to be in a very, very comfortable and confident mindset in order to be able to see stress as a choice. To switch it on and off is very, very difficult. Hence, you have the word professional in a lot of sports and a lot of ways and means. There is always things which catch you out. There are always things that unsettle you. Let's take tonight, for example. I'm not saying I'm a professional pool player or anything like that, but I was stressing about the times and the games and would I play the right shots because I was talking about getting in here. But when you're a professional or when you're confident in being in a stressful environment, then it can be switched on or off. Then it can be a choice. But until that time, and I challenge Greg or anyone else to tell me a time where you've been stressed and you've instantly gone, nah, it's not happening. It's very, very, very difficult to do, and you've got to learn to do that. And anybody says that they don't feel stress, they're living in a huge, huge, huge comfort zone, or on a planet or on a beach full time, maybe. I don't know.
And that actually goes back. We opened the show by talking about this well-being continuum, and we've got this wellness on one side where everything's going fine and dandy. Then you've got situational responses, symptomatic indicators, and unwell, which we're going to be returning to before 11 o'clock. And if you're well and you're in this place where everything is going well and you're high functioning or productive, maybe your stress levels are just something that just goes along with this is how I carry on. But if like situational response for an example there. Hayley's already mentioned cortisol, the stress hormone that comes through. You've got adrenaline, that is also a hormone that can impact our feeling and our well-being. These are all things, Carl, that can impact our judgment and our actions and our perception of our surroundings.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, when we have these things, these chemical reactions going on in our body, whether it's cortisol, adrenaline, whatever it might be that's flying around, it puts a hindrance on the way that we are able to perform. You know, so it's really, really difficult to try and maintain a conscious flat plane level and not let stress bother you. It's helped a lot by exercise, breathing techniques, meditation, all these type of things that we spoke about previously in different shows. But stress is very, 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 very adaptive to your body, and you know it can blur your vision. It can increase your heart rates, your breathing rate levels, and it can just put you in a completely different world if you can't keep control of it, and it's very dangerous. It can be dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Because Hayley, the background of our brain and why we get stressed and why we've got adrenaline, these all these hormones and cortisol and things, they're designed to keep us safe. But back when we were hunter-gatherers, where there were bigger predators than ourselves, but we're not in that situation anymore.
And I think that's part of the problem, really. I think we are stressed. We are probably, I would imagine, the way that we live currently with always being stimulated, always being switched on. You know, you wake in the morning, you switch your phone on, you're stimulated. You the last thing you do is switch your phone off, you're stimulated. So you're constantly on the go all the time. And I would imagine we're different stress, but more stress than we would have been in times where we were being chased by that sort of tiger or saber-toothed tiger and that kind of thing. But the problem being is we're not doing things to get rid of the stress either. So if that fight or flight, we're not fighting, we're not running, we're sitting behind a screen, or we're sitting behind, we're sitting watching telly, or we're going to bed, whatever that is. We are not expending the energy, the adrenaline. We're not using all those hormones that are being excreted into the body. But it's about, I think, understanding what stress does for you as an individual. I say this all the time, everybody's different. And until we understand how something impacts us, we can't change it. And yes, I'm looking at the comments about we can always be in control. Yes, and as Carl said, earlier, you have to be very good and very on top of yourself to be able to be in control. And life isn't always like that. We're not always in control. We're not always in a position to be in control of everything. If you looked at my life, a lot of people wouldn't. I sleep for 3 hours a night, up to maybe 6 hours if I'm lucky, and I have all these things I do with the kids and work and business, and I'm lucky. I'm not as stressed as I could be because I've done the emotional work. But that doesn't mean I don't lose control sometimes, and stress overcomes me.
Yeah, I got to agree.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with one of GJ's comments here. Let's get it back on the. You must take time out for oneself. So this is a recommendation from GJ. It's also a recommendation from Tammy. Found some literature. So she's not with us live tonight. I hope you're doing well. You're very missed here on the show this evening. But she did send us some self-care tips to help manage stress levels. So we're going to go through. We've got trying new things and we've got avoiding things that we've got in our literature. So Carl, we're going to work through the avoid so we can be aware as to what might be causing stress inducers. And then we're going to look at the things that we can try. Because, Carl, in the conversations we've had over the last 2 years that I've been here, you're all about trying things to try and increase yourself. So let's look at the avoid column first. So the first thing on this column is overdoing it on sugar, caffeine, or alcohol. So these stimulants and depressants. So what are your views on diet?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, too much of one thing is not good for you, is it? And I mean, with every high, there becomes a low. So, if you're looking at stresses right there, if you drink too much coffee, caffeine, sugars, caffeinated drinks, this, that, and the other, then you've got to have a reaction. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, as one very clever man said years ago. And how do you keep your body balanced if you're putting unbalanced items into your body? It just will not happen. That means you will have that knock-on effect of your body will be stressed if your mind is not, for that example. So yeah, absolutely, it will change dramatically the outlook of your environment, your situation, and how you are doing things, perceived to be doing things, and feel about things for the period of time that is in your body. Then that will change dramatically over the next 2 or 3 hours while it drops back again.
There you go. And I love that about that whole what you put in. There's got to be something that you're going to have to counterbalance and put off that. Greg's agreeing with you. Exactly, Carl. Well said, buddy. The second one on this list of things to avoid, overworking and checking your emails out of hours. We all need time to unwind. What damage is it having, Carl? Like you work as well. We're all three of us are here at 10:20. We're putting on a live show. We're live streaming on Facebook. We're going out on air on the internet all over the world. And this to some people is, I don't know why they do it. It's interesting, but I don't know why they're working so hard. But we also need to take that time to unwind. You've been playing pool this evening, for example.
Yeah, that's right. And I've got to go back and play a Captain's Cup in a bit as well. And, it's life, isn't it? Life is busy. Now, I've got two views on this. Some you'll agree with and some you won't. And the penny dropped with me a couple of months ago. And I think it was my environmental factors that I was used to. Why do we listen and read emails and messages and voicemails at 10, 11, 12, 3, 4 in the morning? Because that's what we're used to. Because that's our common ground. That's our environment. That's our natural, normal run-of-the-mill. That would not necessarily stress us out. However, if you're starting to do that for the first time or whatever, and you've never done that before, that's going to be extremely stressful. Now, don't get me wrong. It does at times where I am on, let's say, a night out, or I'm working in the nightclub, and I have people drunken 3 o'clock in the morning trying to talk to me about their fitness and health. And I'm working late and trying to deal with stuff at that time. That is really, really stressful. And I thought for a long time, I need a more work-life balance where I take more time off. Sorry, my lights have just gone because I'm in the car. I need more of a work-life balance, and I need to stop looking at my emails at this time of night, and I need to stop responding to every message at every time that it comes through. And I need to be exclusive to only speak between 5 and 7 o'clock and then have my time to rest. And what happened with me, now I am not like everybody else. There's lots of people like me, but in the main, I would say I'm a little bit different to kind of your average person in regards to work, lifestyle, sports, hobbies, kind of paradigm. And what I found over the last 8 months is I've tried to really significantly balance work and life better. And what I found, and this is really being honest now, what I found is by not responding to emails, by saying I'll not look at that for 2 hours, by going, you know what, I deserve to have that little bit of extra food, I think I've got sloppy. I think my saw hasn't been sharpened enough. I don't think I've been keeping myself as normally as healthy as I would be, because I tried to put too much of a balance in place. So my biggest point here that I'm trying to make is what works for one person doesn't work for anybody else. And I know that I am much better when I'm busy and I can just keep going and I tick things off. That's how my life works. My body becomes balanced with that, and that doesn't stress me. But when I try to take too much time off, then all I do with my time off is I stress about when I can go back and do work. So you've got to understand yourself, and what works for me will not work for you, but you've got to go through that phase. And I always thought you watch on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and wherever else it might be, work-life balance, work 3 hours a day, make £1 million a month, and don't do anything for the rest of your time. It's rubbish, because you'd probably be the unhappiest, unhealthiest, and the most unwell psychologically that you could be. So you've got to find what works for you, and if you can do that with your time, then you'll need to find things to do with the rest of it. But you've got to know yourself is the biggest thing, and you've got to be able to know, and you've got to try these things to see what works for you.
Yeah. You mentioned there about having that allotted time for you, and GJ has actually got the next thing on the list. Actually, turn your phone off when you get home and actually plan to have no screen time. Get rid of that distraction. Get rid of those constant impulses and the need for pop-ups and notifications. You don't need it. And then the two last things to avoid that we've got on this list, then, Carl, which I'm sure that you probably see more in the health and fitness side, but one of them is chasing perfection and just trying to make sure that everything is perfect all of the time. Is that possible?
Nothing's possible to be perfect all the time. Not at all. And if you think that way, then get ready for a sharp fall, because why put yourself on your expectations that high, and under that much undue stress? You're gonna do yourself some damage. We can all be 8 out of 10 quite comfortably for a prolonged period, but being 10 out of 10 and worrying about being overtime on that, or and not hitting a target to the extent of can't sleep at night or whatever it might be, having an argument and letting it dwell on your mind for 3 or 4 days, it's not going to happen. We are human. We're all designed differently. There is no perfect, and we cannot keep working at that work rate the whole time, because it just doesn't help us. The more you strive to do, the less productive you will be. I've got an analogy, and it's too long to do, but there's one about a wood chopper, and there's these two wood choppers, and one guy goes out there the first day, he chops down 3 trees, and the other guy does 3 trees. The first guy comes on the second day, and he goes out there, right, I'm going to work hard today. I want to earn a bit more money. He chops down 5 trees. Great. It works really, really hard. The other guy goes out, chops down 3 trees again. First guy goes out day 3. Oh, I've done 7 trees. Fantastic. Brilliant. Other guy does 3 trees again. The next guy, the first guy comes out again. He does 2 trees. And he went, what's wrong? He said, what's happened? Like, I don't know. I've gone out earlier. I've worked harder. I've chopped more trees. I've not taken any breaks. And the other guy goes out, does 3 trees again. Now you look at this over a month, and this guy is working hard, not sleeping, stressing about getting this money and stressing about doing this job. And he said to the other guy at the end of the month, he said, what's the secret? He said, you've done as many trees as me, but you've gone home 3 hours earlier than me every day. You've had your break. You're smiling and you're happy. He said, all I do, he said, I sharpen my saw. He said, is how sharp the saw is and how efficient you are is what makes the difference, not the work effort and the time that you put into it.
I like that. You got to take time to make sure your tools are in the right working order before facing each day.
And where are tools? Where are tools?
Yeah, we got to make sure that we're sharp, that we're rested, that we're polished and shiny. We got to look after ourselves. Hayley, what are your thoughts on that concept of chasing perfection?
Oh, it's such a killer, because I see a lot of children with anxiety who are perfectionists at the age of 5, 6, and 7, and it really does. It's debilitating, because you can't move forwards, because you're stuck in that this isn't good enough, and nothing is ever good enough. So it's a really tough place to be. It's not too difficult to overcome when you've done the emotional work. But it can be really debilitating. As Carl said, there is no such thing as perfect. There's perfect for you and perfect for me, and they're very different things, but there is no perfect. I suppose it's an idea of perfect. And I think that's important. If it works for you, as we've said a couple of times tonight, if it works for you, keep doing it. It doesn't matter what everybody else is doing, but it doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah, and that key phrase there is that perfect for you is different for me and different for everyone else. And what we see on social media is it could be a very filtered type of perfect that we're viewing there. It might not be authentic. So you do need to be careful as to what is this perfect? What is this thing that you're chasing after? The last thing I'm going to tie in with what Owain said. We've got it on the screen if you're watching, following us on social media. I always stress. So is there any tips to calm down? And one of the last things to avoid is bottling up your feelings. Carl, what are your thoughts on thoughts and feelings and stress?
I am the most open person in the world, and whether people want to hear my rubbish or not, I tell them. It's one of those things. I go out in the van with a hasty bite van in the mornings and whatnot, and if I've had a bad day or something's on my mind, and somebody goes to me, "Are you all right?" I went, "How long?" I'll say to them, "How long have you got?" Or I'll go, "No, listen to this and listen to this," and they'll all sit there and they'll all listen, and then at the end I'll go, "Thanks for that. I needed that then." It is the worst thing that we can do, and to bring it back to a serious note, I've just had a good friend of mine just 2.5 weeks ago commit suicide and die over stress and bottling things up. And he was one of my pool members, a very good family friend. And the amount of times I'd say, let's go and have a coffee and whatnot and have a chat, and he'd be like, "Yeah, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine." And it just goes to show, when we're in our own head, it's a very difficult place to be. You cannot stay there for long and be healthy and happy ongoingly. You become your own worst enemy, in all honesty, because you start to judge and question yourself way too much. So it's just listening to other people. Where social media could be a good thing is there are lots of avenues on online support groups now, so you can just go in and listen to people, listen to their stories, and resonate with what's going on there. That is a good option from that. But yeah, you've got to be able to open up or write things down, or do some type of exercise, breathing techniques, visualization, as we said, activity, in order to get out of your own head and to really get yourself back to a level playing field.
Yeah, and first of all, sending big love to you and to everyone that's been affected by that recent death as well. And as you said, it just goes to show you don't know what is going on inside other people's heads. And this is slightly off topic, but it's treat everyone with kindness, because you don't know what they're going through. And like there's not always signs or symptoms that help you identify that someone does need help. And if they're not seeking help, then how can you help them when they're not looking in the first place? It's a real difficult thing to manage, isn't it? This is very personal, Carl. You feel free to fob it off, but dealing with that grief and maybe looking at other friends and family members in your circle, are you able to try and get people to get talking more? Has it encouraged others to talk more and be more open since it's happened?
Yeah, I mean, I think so, because it just brings it back to the matter of fact of, we should be here for each other more. And I'll give you a good example. I played pool with all my family, and Jai was a part of this pool team, and we've got a family team. And I've got a guy there, two gentlemen in there who are in their 50s, 60s, 40s. I tell them I love them and give them a cuddle every single night. I say goodbye to them. On the phone, I say, "Love you, mate. See you next week," or whatever it might be. Words are so important, especially when you're in a fragile position. A smile, a tap on the back, these type of things are so important. And I think sometimes, and it's horrible, but going through these scenarios obviously are devastating, but they will help you learn from that situation and help you think, right, okay, if anything like this happens again, what can I do differently? And I think that is so important to be able to take lessons from these things. But yeah, you just got to remember that just always be kind, and always speak to people. If you see somebody not being themselves, and and they ask them, "Are they all right?" And they go, "Yeah, I'm okay." Okay doesn't mean good. Let's remember. They've not gone, "Yes, I'm really well, thanks." And you can see in their tonality, you can see in their eyes, you can see in their facial expression straight away. You can see in their posture, how they're holding themselves, how they walk down the road, how they're pushing the pram. You can see that if somebody's feeling right or they're not feeling right. And I play this game, I say with you guys, Toby and whatnot, and I see how many people I can make smile walking down the road. See how many people I can wave to. See how many people I can get talking. Now and then, it takes a 1 degree angle to make a million miles of difference in the long run. That's all it is. Make that one step, say something to that one person, and the knock-on effect is tenfold.
Yeah. And you mentioned there about, yes, it can be a learning opportunity, but circumstances like the ones that you've experienced can impact people in different ways. And learning from that can sometimes take longer than for others, than like for you and for me, than for someone else. And Hayley, you've been mentioning there about having those mental tools. And I suppose that's kind of the purpose of this show, isn't it? It's to open people's awareness that these tools do exist. So if you are in maybe coming out of some trauma, or you're in something at the moment, there are tools available, but it takes time and patience.
Yeah, but you know, one of the most simple tools, right? And this, I call this a Swiss Army tool. It is a mind map. We talk about journaling, and sometimes men don't, particularly men, I'm going to say, but I'm not a big journaler. But men don't want to write things down. But a mind map is a snapshot, and it makes it easier. You can use it for everything. You can use it for your goals. You can use it for your emotions. You can use it for what's going on at the moment. If you're stressed, you know, putting yourself at the middle of the mind map, and then just throwing everything on paper to see what's going on. It really does sort things out, and seeing something on paper and having it in your head are completely different. And then the next level is talking to somebody, because talking to somebody and having it in your head is another different level again. So it's about really giving yourself the time. I would start with permission. We did this last time, didn't we? Start with giving yourself permission to look after yourself. And I think that is so, so important. But another trick for when you're asking somebody how they're doing, ask them a second time. I always ask my clients, is that your default answer? And it always makes them laugh, because they know it is. But it really opens up the conversation, because they've laughed and they've gone, yeah, it's been a really rubbish week. And you open a conversation so easily just by saying, is that your default mode?
Yeah. Overcoming that default, always ask twice, is a very, very good advice. Owain, also very grateful and thankful for our advice. He said, thanks for that, Carl and Hayley and Tom. You're very welcome. It's what this show's all about. Carl, I'm conscious that you're still in a pool tournament. Are you good for time, or are you shooting off?
I do unfortunately have to go. I've got to go and play the Captain's Cup, and I'm winning it at the minute, so I need this game to get through season left.
Well, I tell you what, you've kind of so we went through the avoids there, but as part of doing that, we did look at the tries. But Carl, you go off. Hayley and I are going to go through these tries, because it's basically the opposite to what we've just been looking at, the avoid. So you shoot off. We're going to carry on here for another 5 minutes or so. Pobluk with the pool game, you can do it. And thank you so much for sharing everything you've shared tonight, and in particular that vulnerable moment, talking about your friend recently as well. I know that that's going to resonate with your network, with the people that are listening, because it's common. It's not the first time that we've mentioned suicide in this show this evening. It's something that is on the rise, particularly in young men. And the more that hopefully we can shed light, and we can talk, and we can get people being vulnerable, like this morning I was talking to Mark Jones, then it's something else that, actually, I can talk about it. I can get it out of my brain. So, Carl, thank you so much for sharing that with us this evening.
No
Good
problem,
luck, Carl.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Speaking to me all soon. Yeah.
See you. That was Carl. He's off to win a pool game. I believe in him. But Hayley, but before we go, isn't it? Well, first of all, isn't it amazing to have role models like Carl, the macho men? They've owned a nightclub and they do synergy, health and fitness, and it's the type of characters you wouldn't expect to be talking about vulnerability and I love you and I'm going to hug you and things like that. It's really refreshing.
It really is, because we need more of it. We just need more of it. We just need more people to be able to open up and say those things, because it's, what goes on in your head, you said it tonight, Tom, what goes on in your head, nobody else will know, only you. And if you're not sharing, then we can't help you. We can only do so much to help you and reach out. But I think that asking twice is that default question for me is it just breaks the ice completely if they're having a bad week or whatever. So just ask twice and get people talking.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just a Pembrokeshire thing. It might be an all Wales thing. But when you walk past someone that you recognise in the street, it's like, "Hey, you okay? Yeah, you're all right." And your response is, "Yeah, I'm okay. Yeah, you're all right. Yeah, good." And you just ghost past each other. You've had a whole conversation, but you haven't actually unlocked or unpicked anything. So these tries, then let's quickly go through. So we've done the avoids, which I think is the important thing. So we're now aware as to things that we can avoid. Carl gave some fantastic answers, but very quickly, these are the things to try. In fact, the fitness guy's just left, but get moving, physical exercise to try and release the other hormones that make us feel good.
Yeah, absolutely. And even, it's just even if it's going up and down the stairs or just walking out in the back garden, because getting out in nature is another one, isn't it? Getting out in nature when you're moving is brilliant. But just even if it's moving from chair to chair around your living room, just get moving, move an arm, move a leg, do all those things. I saw a guy this morning. He is a fitness instructor. He was going to work by 5 o'clock. And he just put on his story that he'd done sort of 20 reps of 20 kilograms in arms. And that was good for me because he said, you don't have to do a full routine if you haven't got the time, just do something small.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it doesn't have to be a full on circuits workout, does it?
No.
Another thing, we've already touched on this earlier on, actually, setting aside time, but not just time away from technology, but actually doing something fun or indulge yourself. Like go on that spa day, like treat yourself. I know some people that have got like a fund, like a pot of fund. They squirrel away a couple of quid from their paycheck every month, and like once every 3 months, they go on like a big weekend, spa weekend kind of thing. But setting aside that time deliberately is really important, isn't it?
Yeah, put it in your diary, if it's weekly. And do you know that the interesting thing is quality time doesn't have to be quantity.
Ah, nice.
Because you can spend, if you spend 10 minutes in quality time, it would be far better than an hour, because you got an hour and you would think you've got to put an hour into doing something. But if you do it right, you can get it in 10 minutes.
I like that. And then, you still got that, the benefit from doing it. And that 10 minutes, the next thing on the try to alleviate stress is actually learning a new skill. So if you've only got 10 minutes like that, I'm learning Welsh and French on Duolingo. I had 95% accuracy earlier. But learning a new skill is also a great way to distract yourself from everything else in the world. It might bring on its own stress, but at least it's a different one to the one that your body's used to.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting out of your own head and actually focusing on something that isn't the stress, isn't life, isn't anything else. Learning a new skill, you can absorb yourself in it. And that's so nice, because if that's 10, 15, 20 minutes, an hour, whatever it is, a week, a day, it's just time away from everything, focusing on something else.
And then one thing, we just talked about bottling up your feelings. We know what impact that can have, and the impact that has on everyone around you. But one of them is saying or sharing how you're feeling, and using like your whole self to talk about how you're feeling, not just that default answer that you were referring to earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. The hardest thing, I think, is talking about emotions. We all talk about what we've been through. We'll all you'll stand and talk to a stranger and tell them what you've been through. But you will not tell the nearest and dearest how something has emotionally impacted you. So if you can do that once a day, you'd be surprised at the impact.
Yeah. Just offload it. And you mentioned earlier about journaling or mind mapping. We used to run a writing group with the organization I used to work with, and the most profound thing would happen when writing is very in your head. It's very insular. Yes, you get it out of you, but then sharing that and actually saying what you've written out loud, like your deepest, darkest secrets. Oh my God, the impact that was having on the people in the sessions was I've never experienced a room like it than people sharing those thoughts that they'd written down. It was remarkable. It really was. We are slowly running out of time, Hayley, and we've still got to go back to this wellbeing continuum. We've been referring to it since we introduced it at the beginning of the show. But before we go, we're going to take another moment, mainly so we can have a drink and a glass of water. Talking to Carl is just fantastic, and we're going to look through this situational response, symptomatic indicator, and unwell. We're going to round up on that because understanding this continuum, whilst understanding stress and how to help manage that stress and recognize it, having these two things together, hopefully as we come out of spring and into summer, you'll have these resources and these tools to make better informed decisions as to your own healthcare, which is fantastic. So we're going to come straight back. We're going to have a song, and also I'm going to recap a little bit on the strength of music and well-being, and also yesterday, this lullaby. We're gonna close the show a bit like when Tammy did her guided practice. We're gonna finish with Silky. I forgot to mention Silky to Carl. Damn it. Never mind. I'll send them a message. So these days, Rudimental, Jessica and Macklemore play for you, and we're going to come back very shortly just to go through this well-being continuum. We'll be back in just a second.
I know you moved on to someone new. Whole life is beautiful.